Hello and welcome to the Car Auto Reviews channel. Welcome to the 2025 Kia K4. And in today's video, we're going to do a proper technical review under the hood, take a look underneath it, inside and out, some things we like, some things we do not like, right after this. Let's start our technical review under the hood. Now, the K4 could have two engine options, depends on the trim. So the lower trims will have a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. The higher trims will actually have a 1.6-liter turbo engine. Let's talk about the 2.0 because the 1.6 is the one we tested. The 2.0 is actually very interesting. So the 2.0, plastic valve cover, dual overhead cam, 2-piece cylinder head, timing chain engine, but it is not direct injected. It's actually port injected. Very interesting that. And it is not turbocharged. So very basic engine. Does not have direct injection. Does not have turbo. So if you're against these two, well, there you go. You got an option. However, and this is kind of the bad decision here, you're stuck with a CVT. They call it an IVT, but it's actually a CVT. So it does not change the name and kind of try to go with it. That's the only bad side. I mean, why? If they put the same transmission with that engine, it would have just been great. That's the only problem. Now, we haven't driven one. We haven't looked into the CVT. So, having said that, let's dive into this engine and this powertrain. So, this is a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder direct injected turbo engine. Let's dive into its mechanical construction. Very top, you have a plastic valve cover. Underneath that, you have a 2-piece cylinder head with roller rockers and hydraulic lifters, and this engine has a technology that is really cool. Continuously variable valve duration, the CVVD, which this was actually back in 2019 the world's first production engine to have that. So what does that mean? This engine can vary how much the valve opens, the duration of it. Pretty cool. The way it does that is it's a very complicated contraption. They have a little motor and kind of a second shaft that can change. It kind of rotates and makes the lobe further and closer to opening the valve. Sounds like a disaster waiting to happen, and the jury is still out on that because this engine has only been out since 2019. So we'll find out. You do have the motor that controls that. At least it's not buried somewhere, it's broadly accessible there, which is nice. This engine is a timing chain engine. Does have two timing chains, one for the cams to the crank with an internal hydraulic tensioner, one for the oil pump that does have like a little spring-loaded guide. That's typical design, very simple. This does have CVVT, or continuously variable valve timing. They are both oil controlled. They do have the actuators in the front. Simplest and most efficient way to do this. The cylinder block on this engine is aluminum. Does have the kind of the main caps integrated into the upper oil pan. That's a design we're seeing a lot of manufacturers use these days, so this one is no exception to that. The cooling system on this engine is, I don't want to call it complicated, a little bit, nothing over the top. It does have a belt-driven mechanical water pump. It does have a very small coolant distribution valve. It's nothing complicated, nothing over the top, but it does have that to kind of have a little bit of a thermal management system here for faster warm-ups and whatnot. Now, the fuel system is direct injected only. Injectors underneath the intake manifold. You have a high-pressure fuel pump that sits on the valve cover. It's a relatively simple system, but I wish it had dual, because Hyundai and Kia do have dual, but this particular one only has direct injection. This engine, of course, is turbocharged. You have turbo all the way in the back. It's a pretty bad spot. You have very little room. It's very busy. I feel like you have a lot of room in the front, very little room in the back. It's not the best idea here. This is an oil and coolant cooled turbo. It does have an electronic wastegate, does have air-to-air intercooler. We'll actually look at that intercooler in a little bit when we look underneath it. The transmission option here, we do have one transmission for the 1.6, which is a very nice 8-speed automatic transmission. No DCT, no fuss, no nothing, just a very smooth, it's 8-speed. I just wish they had that 8-speed across all the two engine options, because CVT in this, not a good idea. I feel like a regular torque converter 8-speed would be great. Now, having said that, let's talk about the quality of things under the hood. I have one concern with this car. the turbo location and how the engine is pushed all the way back, I mean, you could barely see the thing. Why do we push the engine back like that? Wish they would have made this where you have a little bit more room in the back. That's the only concern I have. There are a few interesting plastic bits here and there, but overall the build quality here is medium. It's not the best, but it's definitely not even close to being the worst. I like that they give you enough space in the front, enough space on the side, but the back is the only concern that I have. I like that things like the air filter housing, very simple. Things are otherwise relatively simple. It's not a super complicated engine. Now, the high pressure fuel pump sitting on top of the valve cover is the only thing with the valve cover, but that's a lot of cars. It's actually not difficult to remove it, so I can live with that. Now, from a driving perspective, this engine, usually small engines that are pushed to their limit like this one, usually sound super rattly and just annoying. This one, for some reason, isn't. It sounds good, has plenty of power for the size of this car. I'm actually pretty impressed by this combination of powertrain because it's very smooth, very streamlined. I never had a moment driving this car that I felt like, this needs more power. It's actually very linear. I don't know how to describe that, but you get in certain cars, just the powertrain feels right. It's like it's proportional to the size and the weight of the car. This is one of those powertrains. Now, I have not driven the 2.0 with the CVT yet, so we're gonna hold on that one. But as far as this powertrain, I really like it. It works really well. And the most impressive part is, in my driving, I have a little bit of heavy foot. Now, I'm always late. I have a million things going on at the same time. It gets over 30 miles to the gallon around city. That was pretty impressive. So that's the whole CVVD stuff and all that. It's not just for emissions. You actually really get good gas mileage with it. Let's take a look underneath the 2025 Kia K4. Now you notice this one is not fully covered here. It does have a lot of openings. They do have this cover a little bit to the front, but the engine and transmission is pretty wide open. Steel oil pan, which I really like that. Assuming this is an oil level sensor, just interesting to see it in a car in this segment. Now, this mount. Every time you see an engine with this mount, vibration is in the future of this engine. It's just something interesting about this style design. Now, something about oil filters. If you look at this one, they have a little drain here so you can drain the filter before you take it out. I mean, two problems I see. First, housing is plastic, but that's okay. Where it screws into is also plastic, which that was not the case. Now, if you turn around and look here, here's our intercooler. You can clearly see it at the bottom. It's a smaller radiator. They put the intercooler right underneath it. You see the charge pipes going to and from it. It's an interesting setup that they combine them to. So this does not have a mount for the axle. The axle is just straight out of the transmission from the passenger side. Some cars will have a little support bearing here. This one does not have it. It kind of simplifies things, I suppose. 8-speed transmission with a front pan. It is a plastic pan on this one. As we walk our way back, let's look at the front suspension here. Steel knuckle, steel lower control arm, built-in ball joint. It does have a plastic little cap at the end. Hope that doesn't translate into plastic inside. Single piston caliper, McPherson strut design, and sway bar is actually steel. It's pretty cool. As we walk our way back here, exhaust. The exhaust quality is not great. The truth have to be said. Big flex pipe right here. The quality of the welds and everything, yeah, it could be better. Everything from this point onwards, pretty well covered. I like how they covered everything here. They do have some insulation. This one feels very cheap. This one feels good. Fuel tank is right here. You notice how the exhaust takes a 90-degree turn, another 90, and then it comes back. I feel like that was kind of excessive. We come to the back and things are extremely basic here. I mean, this is so basic. This is what you want. Trailing arm, couple steel control arms, steel knuckle, upper control arm is steel. Shock is separate from the spring, which is a little spring. The sway bar link in the back is plastic inside. That's how they do this one. Single piston caliper in the back with the integrated park and brake right on it. Now, this is pretty interesting. I mean, they started really on the good good note, and then they left everything wide open, where the stuff that matters. On this side, same thing. It's basically open. Now this one has dual tips. They don't actually come outside, they're just dual tips. Not the highest quality exhaust in the world. I gotta say that one more time, because this muffler just feels not very good. Let's put it this way. Let's take a look at the outside of the 25 K4. I gotta say one thing. This one is over the top, is the word that comes to mind when I see it. There's so much going on with the design. Let's get into it. First, I really like their new logo. It just looks pretty cool. It's actually Kia written down, but it just looks pretty cool. Now, the front is busy, very busy. This giant headlight. See, the headlight's actually here. This is just a running light. And then there is a little grille. And of course, Kia is very fascinated by this shape. And then another grille. Radar sensors all the way at the bottom. When you start analyzing specific things, it's too much, but overall it has a very interesting look. I actually think it looks good in the front, at least. Something interesting here with the design, if you look at the hood, it's flat, does have a couple curves, but they rolled the hood into the fender. So usually most cars, the fender will be right here. This one, the hood is much bigger, with the fender is very small. This gives it very interesting. It almost makes the car feel a lot wider than it is. Pretty interesting design there. Then we get to the mirror. I'm really fascinated by this, how this just comes from the body, it goes all the way. It's just a little piece of plastic that looks like chrome, but it looks pretty cool. Same thing with this little piece here that kind of breaks the line. I like that. Now the side, at first look, it's just the side. Because when you start looking into the details, when things get very interesting. This little line comes here, and then it goes up and kind of joins the belt line, and then it reappears here, and it kind of goes and actually curves with the curvature of the car. Really like these wheels. They're pretty cool. I think they're very interesting looking. Very nice design. Now you do have lock unlock only in the front, because the back has a handle right here, because you know we could not put a handle here because of this giant curve. And if you look at it from the side, it's actually an optical illusion. The car is not popped outside, it's almost flat, but when you look at it here, it almost looks like this is way out, but it actually isn't. It's just a tiny bit out. But this little line emphasizes this, and it makes it look like it's popped out because they created this plane. That's why it looks, that's really cool. Very kind of little mind trick, but it actually works really good. Then we get to the section that I don't know what exactly happened here. So this is the part where, is this a sedan, is this a hatchback? I think they were trying to make it look like a hatchback, but in the process they created something that is not great. This intersection is not a good thing for service. And there is very few cars in the planet that has this much detail on the roof. I mean, the level of over design here is unbelievable. This glass shape, I don't think you'll see that again in a car. And then look at the roof. It has a crease here, and it's raised, and then it dips down. It's a lot going on here, all to make this car look like a hatchback, but it isn't. It's not a hatchback. Then we get to the back, and this is where the too much continues. Look at this taillight. It literally curves all the way in and then comes down, and this panel also curves. There's way too much going on here. It just looks extremely strange, and that's the design they went with. And the trunk lid is so small, they put this black panel to make it kind of look like a hatchback that it isn't. It's Kia logo again, we like. K4, I understand. GT line is the trim actually. I like that small and just kind of unique. That's pretty cool. Let's take a look at the trunk. So it's not a power trunk, but it does have a shock. That's why it comes up pretty quick. It is because of this strange design. It's a pretty wide opening trunk, and that I really like. Pretty decent sized trunk actually. And You do have a spare tire and zero insulation. Surprising, because this car is actually not super loud. One thing, and I can understand this is not a complaint. It's 2025. This is a brand new model. If you look inside, we have a tiny halogen bulb, and a little LED bulb would be nice. We can, given the price of this car, we can live with it. Of course, wires exposed and everything. You're not going to find covered stuff, but they did give you actually a pretty nice covered inside of the trunk here. Don't like the look of the back, really like the look of the front though. Let's take a look at the inside of the 2025 Kia K4. I gotta say one thing, this is very nice. It's very open. I really like it. See, this is not gonna impress you with materials and this and that, because really that's all. The seat leather is really nice and it's high trim, but very functional. I love it. Let's start looking at some of the details here. So the gauge is a big screen, which usually I'm against screens, but it's actually a nice screen. Gotta say that. It doesn't do much, but it's just the way it's laid out, connected to the infotainment screen. It looks pretty cool. So here's the deal here. There is 3 screens here in this higher trim. On the lower trims, you only have 2. One is a gauge, one is the infotainment system, which, by the way, wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, very responsive. It even has the sounds of nature. The middle screen is your HVAC control in the higher trims. So, good and bad. Good, they still left you some, like the fan, the temperature, the mode. You can still operate with physical buttons, but everything else is in this little screen, which when you are driving, it is completely obstructed by the steering wheel. Yeah, they couldn't do that one, right? But the good news is when you go to lower trims, that's not there. You have full physical button control, which I really like, but you retain the infotainment, you retain the screen of the gauge, so I'm okay with that. Proper shifter, not some weird rotary dial or buttons or whatnot. I really like that. Start button is a little bit of an interesting location. It's right next to the shifter. Takes you a minute to get used to it, but it's not a big complaint. I like how open it is. You have space here, space here. Center console is not very big, but it's very usable. It's a very, I don't know how to describe it. It's like a comfortable place to be. There's something very notable. The glass gives you an impression that the car is wider than it is. And it's just the way the pillar and the glass has a slight curve on the edge that gives it very good visibility. I really like the visibility on this car. Seats are super comfortable. Like in this higher trim here, the heated and cooled seats controls are on the door. How more simple can that be? The physical button, they don't need to be anything different than that. I love it. There's a lot of physical button here, some stuff on the screen, some of them on that HVAC control. For example, this very interesting rotary dial for the volume is pretty cool. It's just, I mean, it works. I like that. Steering wheel control, super simple. I like the emphasis on the drive mode. It's right in the middle of the steering wheel, drive mode, in this GT line one. So the other trims, they have a different steering wheel, which is like a 2-spoke, strange steering wheel. But this one has the drive mode right in the middle with a white center where the airbag is. Pretty interesting. So driving this car, this is what I love about this car. You expect it to be loud, harsh, and horrendous. It is not even close to any of these things. The only thing I notice is over harsh bumps, you will feel a little bit of noise from the suspension, but it's actually not super loud to drive. Engine is not intrusive, feels very comfortable, very composed, drives pretty good. I mean, you can't ask more than that in a car that costs this much in 2025. They truly did a fine job here, folks. Let's take a look at the back seat of the Kia K4. So I'm 5'7", this is my driving position. I have decent knee room, decent headroom. It's not the biggest back seat in the world, of course. However, there are some interesting stuff. You have 2 vents here. You have a little bit of storage, some USB-C. Then there's the seat, in which we got to talk about. I don't exactly know what happened here, but they had to do it. There's no way around it. What exactly is this, and why does the headrest have this very, very strange shape? I mean, it almost feels like this takes up some of the space and makes it feel smaller. I don't know what exactly this does. This is a very cheapo plastic. You only have one storage here behind the seat. This one doesn't get it. That's just how they did this. But this is a comfortable place to be. Thigh angle is pretty high, seat's pretty low. I understand it because this is not a tall car, but for the price of this car, one more time I'm going to say it, this is pretty impressive. So, the 2025 Kia K4. Folks, this is one of those cars that are trying so hard to be cool and different. But the reasons it is good is unfortunately not like the designers intended. The reason this car is good, not because it's cool looking and whatnot, because I think they went a little overboard there. The best thing about this car is it is reasonably priced. And this is proof that in 2025 manufacturers still can make cars that are actually affordable and good. Because in 2025, cars are below $25,000 new. You're basically stuck with some EcoBox that is horrendous. Very few cars are actually nice at their base trim that are reasonably priced. This is at the top of that. This starts out at $22,000, goes all the way to $32,000. But even at $32,000, fully decked out with every single option, similar to this one, it's a lot of car. It has a lot of options that some much more expensive competitors don't have. A while back on the main channel, we reviewed a 2025 Toyota Camry that cost $45,000. Well, this has more options. Actually, the interior is better thought out. This is not a hybrid. Reliability might be a different story. But if you're on a budget and you want to buy a new car, this should be on your radar, because it's not one of those new cars you buy that are not expensive that just feel horrible, generic. It's actually very nice. And the best part is, on the lower trim, most of the good options stay. Somewhat good looking on the front, back is a different story. The interior is very usable and functional. It does have modern tech and everything. I mean, what more could you ask for a car that starts at $22,000? If reliability holds for this car, and with the two engine options, I like that the older option is a little bit less complicated than the higher trims like this one. If reliability holds, this is easily one of the best sensible cars you can buy in 2025 because they're priced normally. And not like they priced it normally and then cut everything out of it where it's barely functional as a car. No, it's actually very impressive. And this is proof, other auto manufacturers, that you can make a car that is reasonably priced and not horrendous. This is the opposite of horrendous. Very surprising. It drives well, looks okay, does have really good tech. You go up in the option list, doesn't get ridiculous. It's actually still a very compelling car. Size-wise, it feels like they kind of put it as a small sedan. It's actually not. It's a little bit on the bigger, small sedan side, almost mid-size, slightly under the mid-size. So I think this has a lot going for it. Now, not without a few gimmicks, like the HVAC controls are strange, but hey, you can't have everything in life. I'll live with that any day of the year because it didn't cost me a ridiculous amount. Reliability is probably the only thing that somewhat stands in the way. They are not known for the top reliability. They're not the worst, but they're not the best either. They're somewhere in the middle. And the long warranty that this comes with new really starts to cover for that, because at this price, you're not going to find a lot of cars this nice at this price point. Folks, I hope this video was helpful and informative. I hope you learned something new. If you like it, consider giving it a thumbs up. If you're not a subscriber, consider subscribing to the channel. Check out some other videos. Until the next video, folks, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and you have yourself a wonderful day.